Hey everyone, Dr. L here with your week 4 video. So for today's virtual lecture, this week's virtual lecture, I'm going to focus more on content from the textbook and lecturing on that stuff because for our in-person class this week, we have an activity and I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to do the activity and then debrief and have a class discussion. So without further ado, this already has a typo in it. This should say virtual, but this is our virtual PowerPoint. And so we'll be focusing on socialization as well as groups and organizations. So I'm going to do a little review from last week. I'll lecture on the content related to the readings from the textbook you have for this week. And then I'll have that exit pass link for you followed by reminders. Make sure you complete reading quiz 2. It's your second one. It's due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Just as a refresher, you can submit your weekly assignments, including your reading quizzes, by clicking on the Submit Weekly Assignments Here folder on eLearn on your left-hand side of our eLearn page. You find the correct week and the correct assignment. Click on that. And then typically for the quizzes, either there'll be a button to upload your written answers to the short response questions, or if it's a more traditional quiz where we're doing multiple choice true false questions, there would be a blue button that says start quiz. You would click on that and then the quiz questions would start to generate and you would be able to submit that at the end. So just make sure you're following along with our course schedule so that you're doing all of the weekly assignments and you're completing everything you need to. Again, for a refresher, if you forget where to find the course schedule, in the list of folders on our eLearn page on the left-hand side, there's a folder labeled Important Documents Here. The second document down is our course schedule. And so that lists all of the assignments, all of the readings, all of the topics, and it provides you with due dates for all of the assignments, including the weekly assignments and the reading quizzes and all of that. If you have any questions about content or assignments, make sure you're reaching out to me, asking questions before or after class, coming to my office hours on Wednesday or Thursday, and that sort of thing. At the time that I am recording this, I have not finished grading week 2 assignments. And so typically it takes me 7 to 10 days to grade all assignments, including your weekly assignments. But by the time we have our in-person class, I will have graded week 2 assignment, and hopefully I will also have started grading week 3 assignments. So make sure you're keeping an eye out on the grade book, looking at not only your score for your weekly assignments, but also my feedback. So I always like to give every student some comments, no matter how awesome your assignment is or how much revisions you may potentially need to do. I'm going to give you feedback so that you know I'm actually looking at what you're submitting. And even if you get, 10 out of 10 the first time, you're able to continue improving on your writing, your quiz taking skills, and that sort of thing. And then finally, what to do in an emergency situation. So although last week, by the end of the week, the weather was much better, campus was shut down on Monday and part of Tuesday. And so I know that when we got to Thursday, I was still receiving emails from students in our class saying that they were having transportation issues, their car was stuck, or, you're sick because the temperatures are really, really, really freezing. Just make sure you're emailing me as soon as possible, preferably before class starts, letting me know what's going on. And then if it is something that's going to be an ongoing issue, like let's say I've heard a lot of people say that their car batteries died because of the storm and not driving their car. If something like that happens to you and you think you're going to miss multiple class periods, let's talk about how you can potentially find an alternative way to get to campus as far as like public transportation and that sort of thing. I'm happy to help students navigate that type of thing and finding resources, but I don't know what I don't know. So make sure you're just communicating all that with me when you email me so that we can plan accordingly. And then, as usual, come prepared for our in person class Thursday evening to ask questions or provide comments and share things with your classmates as needed. I'll go over exit pass answers during our in person class. So, without further ado, let's get into review. Chapter 3. One of the main questions we ask in sociology is what is culture? And so we talked about how culture includes our values, beliefs, norms, language, practices, and artifacts within society. We also provided different examples of how culture is learned. We talked about cultural universals, which are patterns or traits that are globally common to all societies. And we went into detail about how pretty much all societies, all cultures have family units, but because most things are socially constructed, what the family unit looks like in different cultures, or even in the same culture in different eras and different time periods, can evolve over time. And we provided examples for that in class. Moving along, in chapter 4, we focus on society. That's really the foundation of that chapter. A society is a group of people who live in a definable community and share the same cultural components. Industrialization is sort of this ongoing thread that we discuss throughout the semester. It's very foundational to the field of sociology. And so when we think about ways of organizing different types of societies that have existed and currently exist, industrialization, it continues to be this sort of pivot point. And so in pre-industrial societies, we had hunter-gatherer societies, pastoral societies, agricultural and feudal societies. We tend to not focus on that so much in sociology, but it is important that you know those types of societies and you're able to define them. We tend to focus more on how society changed due to industrialization and what our society looks like in a contemporary setting now that we've gone through the full industrialization process. And that ties directly with capitalism, especially in the majority of Western societies and in the United States. And so capitalism is a way of organizing an economy so that the things that are used to make and transport products are owned by individual people and companies rather than the government. And we can talk about the fact that in the United States, although we are very much rooted, our society is very much rooted in capitalism, we still have some aspects of our society and our culture that are sort of organized and overseen by the government. If you think about K through 12 education in public schools, if you think about the inclement weather we've had recently, the roads are salted and plowed by city or county officials in the government, right? And although we are seeing an increase in privatization of things that have historically been taken care of by the government in the United States, if you think about, again, using the public school example, if you think about voucher programs and charter schools, that is an example of the privatization of aspects of our society and our culture that historically have been run publicly by the government. Even in with those vouchers and those charter schools, they still typically get grant money and funding from the government in some way, shape, or form. All right, without further ado, let's lecture on new content. So, just as a reminder, this is an overview of the content covered in the chapter. It's not all of the key terms and all of the foundational content from that chapter. However, students are responsible for reading the full chapter and understanding all of those terms and theories. So, if you ever have questions about something that you read and we don't cover it during virtual or in-person lecture, make sure you're emailing me or you're attending office hours for clarification. All right, so without further ado, socialization is the focus for chapter 5, and this is a process where people come to understand societal norms and expectations. It's how we sort of learn how to accept society's beliefs and how to be aware of societal values. The socialization process is always ongoing. We get socialized and learn these values and things like that through our family, through our friends, through other social institutions. Again, Education, especially the K through 12 public school system, is a great example of a social institution that serves in part to socialize young people. The self is a person's distinct sense of identity as developed through social interactions. So, recall at the beginning of the semester, we talked about what sociology is, and we compared and contrast sociology with psychology. In psychology, they're focused on the individual psyche. Even when we in sociology are thinking about individuals and we're thinking about the self, ultimately it always goes back to how is the self, how is the individual interacting with other folks and within the social world around them through social interactions. Again, we can start to ask questions like who socializes us? Where does this often occur? And then do we continue socializing throughout our lifetime? And the short answer to that last question is yes, we do. And for our activity we're going to do during our in-person class, we will start to talk more about different ways that we are socialized based off of identity categories, things like race, class, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, ability, and things like that. All right, so transitioning into chapter 6 and our unit on groups and organizations. Groups can be defined as any collection of at least two people who interact with some frequency and who share some sense of aligned identity. So groups can be formal, informal, small, or large. If you think again about education as an example, we all identify probably as an informal group of people affiliated with a college or university because we all either work and or take classes at Sinclair, right? And so from there, there's different ways we can sort of organize different types of groups. A newer, more contemporary sociological theory, again, that you can add to your sociological toolbox as we continue to analyze social phenomena and historical things within the social world around us, is Ritzer's McDonaldization. So, according to Ritzer and the McDonaldization of society, it's this idea that the increasing presence of the fast food business model it commonly infiltrates different aspects of social institutions. Essentially, excuse me, um, he's arguing that as society continues to grapple with industrialization and efficiency and things like that, adopting a model similar to McDonald's or fast food restaurants helps to increase that efficiency and that productivity, especially if we think about societies that are rooted in capitalism like we are in the United States. And so if you think about McDonald's and their model, you go to McDonald's, you're going to get your food quickly. And you also know that if you're in McDonald's in Dayton, Ohio, and you have your order ready to go because you go there regularly enough that you know you order a number 1 or a number 5 or whatever the case might be. And then you go to a work conference in Seattle, Washington, or you go to visit family in Parkersburg, West Virginia, you stop for McDonald's, you order the same number that you normally do, it's going to be consistent. It's going to be the same. If you were to go to McDonald's in another country, they might have some different menu items that are unique to that culture and to that country, but for the most part, the items on their menu are going to be the same. And so it's this idea that by making things the same, making things fast, you're being efficient. And so applying that to other social institutions is what we're talking about when it comes to McDonaldization. It's about efficiency, it's about industrialization and capitalism, ultimately. All right. That's all I have for you in terms of lecturing from the chapters you're supposed to be reading for this week from the textbook. Make sure you click on that link at some point this week and you do the anonymous feedback. As a gentle reminder, if you have a specific question that requires me to follow up with you, I legitimately can't connect your responses to your email address or anything like that. So if, for example, you say in your exit pass that you don't know the difference between quantitative and qualitative research and you like follow up on that, also include your name. That way I can send an email or I can talk to you before class. In terms of reminders, finish reading chapters 5 and 6 that I just lectured on. And then you should also start reading chapter 7 by the end of the week to prepare for week 5. Add selfie entry 4 to your selfie entry log. You do not know what items to include yet. You have to be in person on Thursday evening to get that item. So make sure you're doing that. Or if you're sick or have transportation issues, you're emailing me before class, because the only way I'll give you the selfie item when you miss is if you've emailed me before class or you have an emergency extenuating circumstance type thing happening. Don't forget to submit reading quiz 2 on eLearn by Sunday at 11:59 p.m. I encourage you to look over that assignment prior to our class in person on Thursday. That way you can ask any follow-up questions face-to-face, and then that gives you some time to, after Thursday's class, you can still complete the assignment by Sunday. Make sure you're keeping up with the virtual work. Remember, our class is blended, so you need to attend our weekly evening class Thursday at 5:30. But you also need to be doing your reading quizzes. You need to be listening to the virtual lectures and following along with the online content. Sometimes students will do one but not the other, and both are important to ensure your success in our class. Other than that, have a great week and weekend. I look forward to seeing everyone Thursday. And if you do have any questions, here's my email address. All right.